Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is the place where you learn new skill every time you visit. So keep updating yourself by subscribing to the channel. This is the second video of the Python series for beginners, and today we are going to discuss the data types in Python and if else, else if, and the nested if in Python. Comments in Python. Comments are the statement which a programmer gives to explain the set of logic which he or she has applied on the code, or in a simple way, it's an English-like statement to explain a set of code in a program. So in Python, we need the hash to give a comment. So this hash symbol is placed to give a comment in Python. How do we do that? Let's see in this particular example. Here we have put a statement with a hash symbol in front, and we say that storing a word magnitude to a variable name. And next line, we have the Python statement. So compiler is going to ignore this statement as a Python command, and it's not going to give any error. Otherwise, if you would have not put this hash statement, it would have given you an error, a compilation error. All right. So this is the way you put a comment. You can also put a comment at the end of the statement. So here it is the statement, Python statement, and we can also put at the end of the statement the comment which I would like to, if I like to explain the set of code which I have written in the program. Now Python numbers. In Python data types, there are three categories of numbers which we use and which are integer, float, and a complex. So the integer values are any number which has non-decimal, a negative or a positive number. The decimal values are any number which has a decimal up to 1, 2, 3 places, and a complex number are any number which has a real and an imaginary part. Now the complex number are used in advanced mathematics, and since Python is the language which is used in mathematical application to create mathematical application and for creating mathematical statistics applications, so that's why the option of complex number is also here in Python. All right. So as we all know that we specify the data type of a variable by giving a value to it. So if I store 1 to x, it becomes an integer. If I store 2.8, it becomes a float. If I store anything with a j at the end, it becomes complex, right? So these are the three types of numbers which are there in Python. Now what are their range? Now int is a whole number, a positive or a negative number without a decimal. The only thing is it is a non-decimal positive negative number of unlimited length. If I look at these three examples which has been given here, A is storing only 1, B is storing a used number, and C is storing a big negative number, right? So this all kind of number goes to the int, so int can handle this kind of number. Next is the decimal numbers or the float, right? Now in decimal numbers, we can put on any number with either with 2 decimal places or with single decimal places or with a negative sign. So a decimal number is used to hold any number with a decimal, whether it's a 1 decimal, 2 decimal, or 3 decimal, and whether it's a positive or negative number. All right. And about the complex number, which I have just told you a few minutes before, that complex number are used in advanced mathematics, and any number which has a j at the end is considered as a complex number. This we will discuss when we come across problems involving the complex numbers. Now type conversion, since we have different data types like integer, float, and complex in Python, so there may be some case where we need to convert from one data type to another, like from integer to float or from float to complex or vice versa. So we have three functions which are used here for this purpose. First is the integer, which converts any other data type to integer. Another is the float, which converts any other data type to float. Next is the complex, which converts any other data type to complex. All right, let's see how we can use them. So if we look at an example which involves the use of these numbers, uh, here I have stored x equals to 5, integer, y equals to 5.9, float, and z equals to 5, say a complex. Now, if I want to convert this x, which happens to be int, to a float, I can use this function like this. Similarly, if I want to convert from float to int, I can use like this. And for complex, I can use like this. So these functions are used to convert one data type to another or to typecast. All right. Next is, once we have converted them into the respective data types, how we will come to know that the functions have worked properly, right? That we can check by a function called type that we have discussed in the previous video also. We have a type function in Python which tells you about the data type of the variable. Since we do not specify the data type at the declaration, Python automatically takes it depending on the data which I store to a variable. So to know the new data type of these variables, we can use the type function. So if I use type function type A, it will tell me the data type of the variable A. Similarly for B and similarly for C. Now another category is the random numbers. So in Python, we have a random module which helps you to generate a random number. Now what's a random number? A random number is a number which compiler or computer generates on its own. A user or a programmer can only specify the range of it, that is from where to where it can be. Now which number will be picked, that depends totally on the computer. And every next time we run that particular function, is going to create a new number. It may repeat it or it may not repeat it, right? So the random module is used in Python to do this process. Okay. Now in this example, I have explained you how we do that. Now to use this random numbers generation, we have to import a file called random at the very beginning of our program. Now if I say a statement random.randRange and I specify a range, this is the starting and this is the ending. So that means this particular function is going to generate any number between 10 to 100. May it be 99. Okay. It may be 5. It may be 7. It depends on computer. Every time you run this, it will generate any number on its choice, but that will be within the range. So the user or programmer can only specify the range, but cannot specify which number to be picked. This is basically used in games where the user has to pick a random choice or the computer has to pick a random choice. Strings in Python. So in Python, we know that we can store a string by using a single or a double quotation marks. For example, A equals to double quotes magnitude and B equals to single quote online. Both will make the variable A and B as string type. All right. But we can also store a paragraph, means more than one sentence together, by using a 3 double quotes. So if I use this 3 double quote combination at the beginning or at the end of the paragraph, it can be stored into a variable, right? For example, in this particular case, we've shown you that into the variable A, we are storing the statement in Megatit Online we learned coding in the simplest possible way. So these 3 lines has been stored into a variable A, and then when we print it, it will just reprint or present the same paragraph on the screen. So this is the way we can store a string and a paragraph in Python. All right. So next is if-else statement in Python. Now, if-else statements are used to check a condition, right? And these can be used along with loops or just to check a simple condition. So the conditions which are applicable in Python are, the first one is equals. If you have to compare that the 2 variables A and B are equal, you just have to use the double equal to sign. If you have to compare that the 2 variables are not equal, so you have to write not equal. If you have to compare that A is less than B, then you have to use the less than sign. Similarly, less than equals to B, we have to use less than equals to sign. More than B, more than equals to B. All right. Now these statements, as I told you, can be used with if and can also be used in loops. So let's say in this example, we have taken two variables A and B, where we have stored 10 and 15. So both are integer A and B. And now I'm putting an if statement. So the if statement in Python is used like this: the keyword if, and then the condition, and then the colon. Now whatever comes after that statement with a uniform tab, means with a one tab distance from the left side, is considered inside the scope or inside the body of that if statement. So here, this statement A is greater than B comes under this particular if scope or under the body of this if. All right. We can also use the else if statement in Python, and else if statements are used when the first if condition fails, means when the first condition is false. Then if you want to check one more condition after that, then how can we do that? We can do that by using the else if statement, right? Let's see in this example that how we are using this. So we have A equals to 10 and B equals to 15. Here I'm checking that if A is more than B, this has to be executed. But if A is not more than B, then it will go to else part, and here in the else part itself, it will check one more condition, A equals to B. So if A happens to be equal to B, it will say A equal to B. All right. So here you are checking one more condition, the second condition, if the first condition happens to be false, if the first condition is not true. All right. So this is the way you use else if in Python. Now we also have else statement. Now else statement or else keyword is executed when all the previous ifs have failed, whether it's the previous ifs or else ifs. When all the previous conditions has failed, it directly goes to the else statement. Let's continue with the same example where we have already used if and else if, right? Now, if both these conditions fail, means if A is not more than B, N is also not equal to B, which is actually the case in this example. So it is going to come to this. So that's why we are not checking any condition over here. We're just saying else, and it will print this: A is less than B. All right. So this is the way we used if, else if, and else statement in Python. Okay. Now next we have the shorthand or the shortcut way of using the if else statements, right? So the if can be used in one line by just moving the if part of the code onto the same line. So if I write a statement like this, it's going to execute, but here I'm specifying everything in one line. So that's why it's called a shortcut way of using a if statement. Similarly, I also have a shortcut way of using the else if statement, right? So if I have to use the else if statement in a shortcut way, what I have to do is I have to put the true part first, and then my condition, then else, and then the else part. So if this condition happens to be true, it's going to execute this part. If this condition happens to be false, it's going to execute this part. So a little tricky. That means first you have to put the true part, then your condition, then else, and then the else part. So this is the way that you can use else if and else together in one line in Python. So that's why we call it shortcut way of using if else. This is also called ternary operator and the conditionals in Python. All right. Now after the ifs, we have the logical operators. Now logical operators are the operators which are used to join one or more conditions together. Suppose I have to check two conditions together. I need to check whether A is more than 9, and also I need to check whether A is less than 15. So I need to check whether the variable A happens to be between 9 and 15 or not. Then I can combine these two statements together in a line by the AND operator. So the AND gives true output when both conditions are true. As clearly visible in this particular example, I have stored x 150, y 33, z 450, and then I'm checking two conditions, and I have joined them by using the AND operator. So these logical operators are used to join two or more conditions together in the same, along with same if. All right. So here it will give you output if both condition happens to be true. Similarly, just like the AND operator, we have another logical operator, which is the OR operator. Now this OR operator gives the output true if at least one of the condition is true. Here, both conditions has to be true, then only it executes. Here, if any of the condition is true, it will execute. So if x more than y or x more than z, it's going to execute. If any of these conditions are true, it's going to execute. So this is the way we use the AND operator, logical operator, and the OR logical operator in Python. Next comes the pass statement. In many problems, we require that we have to use a statement, but we don't want to execute any code inside that. Okay, I'm more concerned about the else part of it. So in such cases where we don't want to execute anything, we can use a statement called pass. Let's have a look at this particular example where we have stored A150, B33, and I'm checking if A is more than B. I'm just saying pass. So that means if this condition happens to be true, it's not going to do anything. It's only going to execute this statement if this condition happens to be false. So for this condition being true, pass will be executed, and pass means nothing. I'll just pass up, go to the next statement. Okay. So this is the way we use the pass statement. Now, just like the ifs, we have the nested if also in Python. Now nested ifs are if statement inside another if statement. So if you're joining two statements or three statements together, that is after one in the scope of the one if statement, you're putting another if statement. That's called a nested if. So if you look at this example, we have stored x equals to 50, and then we are saying if x is more than 0, print positive number. And inside that scope of that same if, I have put another if. Now if x happens to be more than 100, it's going to print and also above 100. Okay. Else it's going to print but not above 100. So in this case, x is 50, which is more than 0, but it is not more than 100. So it's going to print but not above 100. So this is the way when we use if and another if inside that if. So it's called nested if. Now in the part 2 of this particular video, we'll discuss all things practically. And guys, if you have not subscribed to the channel, please do that, because once you subscribe, then only I come to know that you like the video and I would continue with this series. If you are new to the channel, please subscribe it. Also press the bell notification so that you get notification as soon as I release a new video. Share and like the video.